"Arr, I really hate Tesla." No, but seriously, guys, for the record, I do not hate Tesla. N-O-T. I do not hate Tesla. Let me repeat that. I do not hate Tesla. I don't know what it is with Tesla fanboys, but every time I make a video or anybody makes a video where they're not praising Tesla and like liking 100% of all it has to offer, they are labeled as a hater. And I want to address that in today's video. But in this video, we are going to talk about a few things I actually do not like about Tesla. Things I think other car manufacturers resolve and do a lot better. But why should you listen to me? You may be asking if you are a new viewer. Well, first off, thank you so much for stopping by. My name is Chris and I have this channel which is dedicated to testing EVs. And in the past like two and a half years, I've driven like 50 different types of electric cars. I've driven like a few 100,000 kilometers. So I'd like to say I probably have a little bit more experience than the average car buyer, EV buyer, and the normal average Tesla buyer. Before I talk about what I don't like about Tesla, let me just quickly talk about a few things I actually do like about Tesla, mostly Model 3 and Model Y, because first off, this car, is the most relevant for most people out there. I think Model 3 and Model Y like outsell Model S and Model X like 10 to 1. So it's not even close like what cars most people are interested in. And also these two cars, I have a lot of experience with the past few years. I've driven multiple versions of both of them, thousands upon thousands of kilometers in Norway, across Europe, and I'm still waiting to test drive the newest version of Model S, Model S Long Range, and Model S Plaid, which has just come to Europe. So if you want me to test that, let me know in the comment section down below, and also give this video a thumbs up. And also Model X here, the new version isn't in Europe yet. So what do I like about Model 3 and Model Y? So first off, they are relatively cheap, not only EVs, but cars, especially with the latest price cut. I've like been recommending people, like, if you're on the fence, you don't know what to get, just get like a Model 3 or Model Y, the one that fits your use case the best, because I don't think these low prices are going to last forever. So buy them now when you have the chance. And also Model 3 and Model Y, especially for their price point, have very nice interiors. Not best in class, but like materials and build quality, yeah, pretty nice, especially for the price point. And also Model 3 and Model Y, for their size, their cabins are very, very spacious. Model 3 may not have the biggest and most practical, trunk, since it is a saloon, but Model Y, being SUV hatchback, actually has a very large and useful trunk. These two cars also offer great performance when it comes to their price. If you go for the performance version of both of these cars, they're not going to be that much more expensive than the long range, but they're going to be very, very quick. And for that price point, you're not going to find any other car that's going to beat them when it comes to performance. And lastly, we have the supercharger network. And for a lot of people around the world, this is like a deal breaker for not getting any other EV. In Norway, Northern Europe, and other places across Europe, the CCS network is very good. So that may not be as big of an argument here as other places, but if you live in a place where you basically can't own, other than a Tesla, because the CCS network isn't as expensive, yeah, then you don't have another choice. So as you guys can see, there are a lot of things I like about Tesla, but mark my words, because I don't like everything, there are going to be comments down below that I'm a hater. The first thing I don't like about Tesla are the fanboys. I mean, at this point in time, it is basically a cult. If you don't like praise Tesla for everything, if you're like, oh, they could have done door handles better, you're going to be labeled as a hater. If you're like, well, I mean, you can get this other car in this silver color, I wish I could get a Tesla in silver, you're a hater. If you're like, yeah, seats are pretty good, but like other cars offer ventilated seats, well, don't you dare. Nobody needs ventilated seats, and nobody needs, other seat support and adjustment. Tesla seats are the best. You are a hater. You guys understand my point. So this is kind of annoying, because like, I try to test cars as unbiased as possible. I like to think that my experience with a lot of different, EVs gives me this perspective where I can like judge them on their merits. But if I am not like 100% like positive about everything about a Tesla, I'll be labeled as a hater. Poor ride quality and poor sound insulation or sound deadening. This is just Model 3 and Model Y, not Model S and Model X. So I mean, like ride quality wise, none of these cars, not the 3 or the Y, are very, very good. And it's very apparent when you drive other cars. So I mean, they're not like too stiff. It's like more they're under damped, and the suspension geometry and the setup and the tuning isn't as sophisticated as with other cars. You know, usually they're quite bumpy, they don't settle, they also have shorter suspension travel, which doesn't make the case a lot better. So like Model 3, actually a little bit underdamped. It's actually a little bit too soft in the initial, you know, dampening, and then the car never settles. So an example is if you drive like a Polestar 2 on standard suspension, you're going to notice a big difference in, you know, suspension and comfort refinement compared to a Model 3. And also if you drive something like a Volvo XC40 and then a Model Y, and the reason I'm using these two cars is that I've driven these back to back on really poor roads. When I do my road tests and reviews around where I live, I have these standard routes, so I'm really familiar with the roads, and there is a huge difference in ride quality. And if you live in a place with like smooth and nice asphalt where the roads are nice, I don't think you're going to be as bothered as if you live like in Oslo where the roads are really poor. Interior and driver ergonomics, and as good as the infotainment system is, it really is very good. One of the best out there in my opinion. That still does not mean that everything has to go through the infotainment system. You want to adjust the steering wheel, infotainment system. You want to adjust the mirrors, infotainment system. You want to do the climate, infotainment system. You don't want to use the volume knob on the steering wheel to adjust. Maybe the passenger wants to adjust the volume on the stereo, infotainment system. And I am a proponent of physical buttons and physical knobs. Like a volume knob, something that you're going to use a lot of the time, is a really nice thing. So this isn't only Tesla. I'm going to push back on, you know, everything going touch and touch capacitive, which is just dumb. And thankfully Volkswagen has listened with their new CEO that the models going forward now are going to go back to physical buttons on the steering wheel instead of dumb capacitive touch buttons. So Tesla, that is a huge weakness in my opinion, that everything goes through that infotainment system, because it is very good. And if they would have just, you know, shaved down the functionality a little bit, like doing like, I don't think they're ever going to do climate, but do like give us a volume knob, do steering wheel adjustment, and also mirrors, and maybe other few things via physical buttons. That would leave, you know, less functions in that infotainment system, more real estate, and make it even better. The lack of different variations, configurations, and customization. And you know, this is less for the Model 3 and Model Y and more for the Model S and Model X, because they are expensive cars. S and X, especially when you go for a Plaid, they're going to be very expensive for a lot of people. And when you buy a car that's like 120,000 euros, $120,000, you want paint options, you want interior options. And I'm not just saying this, I have bought a lot of cars in this price bracket. You know, I currently drive a Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo that's like 120,000 euros, and I just wrapped my car in like a crazy turquoise color. I did my seat belts in white, I did the chrono clock in white. So people at this price point want a little bit more customization to personalize their vehicles. And brands like Porsche, also upper class BMWs and Audis and Mercedes, and also, you know, Ferraris and cars that are even more expensive, those brands understand that we can charge the customer money for this, because I'm willing to pay a little bit extra to get just my personal taste on my car. And the fact that you can't do that on a Model S and also a Model X, I think that's a lost opportunity for revenue, for even more profits. And yes, people are going to say like Tesla's the most profitable company in 2022. They're one of the most profitable automakers. Porsche, Lamborghini, and Ferrari are more profitable. So don't tell me they are the most. They're going to say like, oh yeah, the most like normal car makers. Sure they are. And Toyota is an example, but Toyota doesn't make like luxury and premium vehicles. If you compare it to BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Sure, 2022 and possibly even 2021, they were more profitable. But we're talking about companies here who have been profitable for the past 20, 30 years. If you go like 10 years back in time where Tesla was losing a lot of money, BMW had like a streak of 10 years where they had like 15 or 20% profit on every vehicle. So I'm not saying that Tesla aren't doing a good thing. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they are as profitable as they are. But with the recent price cuts, they're probably not going to be as profitable in 2023. And before we have data, like they've been profitable 2 out of like 15 years in business. We have to give them a little more chance before we like praise them and applaud them for being profitable. Again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think more options, like also Model 3 and Model Y, if they had more configurations, like more colors, more interior trim options, different types of wheels, because at this point in time, there are so many of these cars on the road that they're like just a dime a dozen. I just think they've become a little bit boring and stale. I mean, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when the Model S came out, it was like futuristic, it was pushing the envelope, it was the new cool thing. 11 years later, it basically looks the same on the exterior. Yes, we had like a front fascia change like in 2014 or 2013, but since then it's basically the same car for the past 10 years. Yes, we do have a new interior, but like with the lack of colors and options and wheel options and more customization, maybe like different bumpers and stuff like that, and it like looking the same as it did like 11 years ago, it's just a little bit boring. Also Model X, I've never been a fan of the design of that car. I don't think it's very good looking. Also has looked the same for 8 years. Even Model 3 is now 6 years old and it looks the same on the exterior and on the interior. Yes, we had like in 2020 or 2021, we had like different door option trims, like the wood trim extended to the doors, but that's basically the only change, and also center console. But like minor changes, exterior basically looks the same except for like black trim instead of chrome trim. So yeah, I think Tesla, like it's a pity because they like pushed the envelope like 10 years ago, and now it's just a little bit boring and stale in my opinion. Then we have my biggest issue with a Tesla, and this is actually probably a deal breaker for me when it comes to most things, and that is Autopilot, or as I call it, auto steer, which is what, you know, describes what it actually does. Different car makers have different like terminologies or marketing terms for auto steer. Tesla call it Autopilot, which is like kind of a little bit misleading because it's not close to being Autopilot. I mean, FSD is much closer to Autopilot, but everybody now in 2023 basically knows what Autopilot is in a Tesla. It's not true Autopilot. So we're not going to talk about FSD in this video or full self-driving. I think that's an own video in of itself. We're not going to cover that in 10 minutes because that also has issues, and also it's not even available in Europe, so I haven't tested it. It's only available in the US, like globally. Very few markets FSD is available. So Autopilot, and like the auto steer functionality of it, like adaptive cruise control and centering, holding the car in the center of the lane, auto steering, is fine enough. I mean, it's like maybe like in the top 5, top 10 in that sense. It's not the absolute best, but it is actually quite good. But what I don't like about Autopilot is, first off, phantom braking. So if you've driven a car with Autopilot, phantom braking is like you're just cruising there on the motorway at 120 kilometers an hour, 75 miles per hour, no traffic, no other cars, the weather is perfect, and then boom! The Tesla hits the brakes and you're down to like 60 kilometers an hour. And the first time you're like, oh shit, what's this? And then it happens again, and then it happens again, and it happens again. So this is very like dependent on the stretch of motorway. And again, if you live in a place where you don't have phantom braking, this does not apply to you. But in Norway, especially where I do my motorway range test, which is north of Oslo, about 100 to 150 kilometers north of Oslo, like a Tesla will auto brake on its way there like 15, 20 times, and then like 10, 15 times on its way back. It's so annoying, and I don't understand why it's like that. So that stretch of motorway is like 2 or 3 years old at this point in time. And Tesla, like they update their like their map data all the time. So I don't understand why this is an issue. And I live in Norway, my God, like the biggest EV market per capita in the world. They've sold like tens of thousands of Teslas in the past 10 years, if not like 100,000 Teslas. So this should not be a problem. So that's the first thing. That's like basically a deal breaker. And also to activate it, like it's not the most intuitive, and every time you activate it and it disengages, it goes boom boom, a boom boom, boom boom, and you can't turn that down, you can't turn that off. And it's like when you're on a motorway and you're like, you have lane discipline, so you're in the right lane, and when there's a car in front of you, you move over to the left lane, and then you pass, and then you go back into the right lane. That's lane discipline here in Europe. That's like by law, you have to drive that way. And unless you have like, maybe you have like enhanced autopilot, but on the cars with like normal autopilot, you have to put on your blinker and then you have to move over. But the car won't break the lane. So other cars, when you put on the blinker, it will disengage the auto steer functionality. It will keep the like the adaptive cruise control going, but it will disengage the auto steer. So you can change your lane, and then when you're passing and then you go back to your lane, you blink back into your lane, it will engage it again. And like, there's no sounds, it will show you an icon, but when this is a Tesla, it won't let you disengage. There's no functionality to disengage the auto steer functionality separate from the adaptive cruise control functionality. Every other car does this except for Tesla, which is really weird. They're like, we're the best at this. Like, we really pushing this technology, so I don't understand why that is. So you'll have to brake the lane with force, like give it a tug. That's not always the best thing. What if you're on like a slippery surface and then there's ice? And then it boom boom, and then you move over, and then it's like boom boom, it finds the lane, right? Because it engages. And then you blink over to the right lane again, and then you have to brake it again, and boom 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 boom. So in that session, it's like boom boom, boom boom, boom boom. Yeah. Like on a long trip, it gets kind of annoying, like when you're trying to cruise and listening to music. So like it's not very good. I'm gonna be honest, it's not very good, and almost every other car does that, like in and out of lanes, a lot better. Maybe it's a lot different with FSD or even enhanced autopilot, but strangely enough, the cars I've driven don't have enhanced autopilot. Let me know if you own a Tesla in Norway or in Europe. If you have enhanced autopilot, will it let you like change lanes, or will it do it itself? Does it work in Norway? Does it work in Europe? So yeah, I don't hate Tesla. Seriously, guys, I don't hate Tesla, and there are a lot of things not to like about Tesla that I do like. But what I don't like is more like things other cars do better. So guys, let me know what you don't like about Tesla down below, or what you do like about Tesla. And also let me know if you want me to make a video what I really love about Tesla, because there are a few things like that. So if this video gets like 1,000 likes and 10,000 views, I'll make that video. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below, and for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later, and goodbye.